Well, one thing that's really been on my heart recently is love. And, I know we've talked about that before, but what that actually really means, right? And I think we spend our lives trying to acquire it, right? We're trying to be in love. We're trying to receive love. We're trying to give love. And I think we just need to be love. Just be it, right? Rather than trying to give it, rather than trying to take it, rather than trying to be in it, right? It's not a pool, it's a state, right? It's a state of being. And when we can be love, we just attract it everywhere. And that's been a huge shift for me, and a huge shift with a lot of my clients right now. Like, I have this young man that was really, like, his whole business was struggling, and he's a very spiritual guy, and he's like, I'm trying to love everybody and blah blah blah, and I'm like, just back off and just be love. And everything has changed for him, right? Everything has changed. His whole business is restructuring, and everything has moved into a state of flow, right? Because it's not like he's trying, right? So that's a space that we really, I think it's important to drink in. Anytime we're trying, we're actually resisting in whatever we're trying to achieve, right? We're resisting. And, and that love means something different to every human being, right? And most often we're not even operating from a space of love. We're operating in a space of codependence or something else, right? There's very often that, I'm working with people who are struggling in relationships. So they're struggling, and it's like, that's not love, right? Love shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't hurt anyone that it touches, or it's something else, right? Or it's something else. And as soon as we can recognize that, I think life starts turning into a smoother space. That, interestingly, Mary came in and said, I sent out an email or something, and I was talking about the icing that many of us live in. And we have to understand, if we're icing a cake, we can cover up a whole lot of defects in that cake with the icing and make it look really pretty from the outside. But once you get in, there's spots where it's like just caverns filled with icing, and it's too sweet to consume. Too rich, too intense to actually consume or enjoy. And when we can think of our lives from that space, I think it's a very tangible space to maneuver and start shifting. Like, am I standing in a place that's solid and supportive and transformative? Or am I standing in the icing where nothing is real and true, right? It's kind of that same space between kindness and nice, right? Anytime we're in kindness, we're operating from that foundation, that energetic state of love, right? When we're operating out of niceness, we're in the icing, right? And most often our head and our hearts and our guts are not speaking the same language, right? They're not speaking the same language, right? And one thing that I'm really hearing so much of in the spiritual world right now is this heart space. I've seen a lot of damage done when we're in the heart space and not the rest of the wisdom circuit is disconnected, right? If we're in that heart space and we're not connected to this upper circuit and the wisdom of our gut, people get hurt. For example, I had this uncle that was an absolutely beautiful human being, you know? And if he was driving down the road and, you know, there was somebody that needed anything, he was going to stop. Now, the thought of, I have children in the car, what could this mean? Allowing this human being into my vehicle, right? Am I putting other people in jeopardy? You know, was not a thought he had. And, you know, often those acts caused harm to other people. Right? There was one human being that he just totally wrapped his arms around that ended up kidnapping his daughter and taking her out of the state. Right? You know, because he had no discernment around it. He had no discernment to go, okay, like, can I help this human being in a way that is not putting other people in jeopardy? Or is he even mine to help? Right? And I think often that's a question for myself. The very first question I ask is this mine to do? Right? Because we can be in a very egoic space thinking that, oh, I'm supposed to help everybody I come in contact with. And it's not true. Right? It's not true. Right? So that's usually the very first question I ask, is this mine to do? Right? Because we can also insert ourselves in places, which this same uncle, I watched him do it. Now, this man, like, would give you the shirt off of his back. He would give you the last crumb of food that he had, but his kids may go hungry. You see where I'm going with that, right? You know? And when our heart is not connected in to the rest of the circuit, you know, we're not operating out of a place of balance and discernment, right? So every time I hear that, you know, I'm just like, oh, like that's another space where we're being called out of balance. We're being called out of harmony, right? Just like them taking Jesus's turn the other cheek to make it feel like that everybody, we're supposed to just accept whatever they do. No. That's why our world is where it is right now, with people like behaving poorly everywhere you turn, right? Because we're always just, you know, that idea has thrown everything out of balance, right? You know, what's real and true is that he didn't accept poor behavior. He didn't. He called it out in love, right? From that space of love, knowing that calling it out from a space of love is always pushing us into a growth space or the person that we're interacting with, right? When we're not holding people accountable from that love space, you know, it's like having a spoiled child, right? Look around. Our world is filled with spoiled children, right? Spoiled adult children, right? Because, you know, we haven't been holding people accountable. And that doesn't have to be a negative thing, right? It doesn't have to be something harsh, right? It's not love to continue being harmed over and over again, right? Because you can't love another human being unless you love yourself. It is impossible, right? So that whole thing of love your neighbor as yourself, right? And that again has been taken over into this, you know, abyss of unaccountability, right? We cannot love another human being any more than we love ourselves, because that's our bar, right? If you're causing harm and allowing harm to be done to you, why would you think it would be horrible for that to witness that to someone else? You know what I mean? Truly. So that idea of self-care and self-love is not a narcissistic thing, right? When we can really decide what is acceptable for us, what we want in life, right? And are going along those roads, like Miss Sid, who is like, you know, changing the whole course of her life right now, right? And you can feel the love all around you. That's that flow of energy that you're saying is so strong around you, right? Moving that forward, right? And I know for myself, because I came from a Catholic background, and love of self was never spoken of, right? It was humility and sacrifice and martyrdom for another, right? That's not love, right? You know, a martyr is going like this: hey, I'm doing all this over here, right? No. When we're operating from that space of wholeness and that state of love, everything around us is affected without us having to try to do anything, right? It's just affected. It radiates out and affects everything it touches in a positive way, right? Now, I know a lot of us in this space, you know, tend to cocoon and hold up in our own energy. I tend to do that as well. And I think it's time for us to get out. It's time for us to get out.